Today we talk about how to think like a comedian.
This show is for everyone working at the coalface. Digital, business, marketing, social. This is At the Coalface with your host, Jason Greenwood.
Hello everybody, I'm Jason Greenwood. Welcome to episode 41 of At the Coalface. I want to start talking a little bit more in this series about the psychology of success. So obviously there's a tremendous amount of success, whether it be in business, whether it be in marketing, digital, whatever your profession is, or whatever your practice is, or whatever your art is. There's obviously a tremendous amount of success that's attributed to hard work, hustle, skills, natural talent, ability, practice. All those things come into it, but a lot of the success factors are related to psychology and kind of the energy that you're surrounding yourself with. So whether that be your circle of friends, your circle of acquaintances, your circle of colleagues, as well as the way that your brain is wired. And certainly, the evidence and the research shows that the brain can be rewired over time, and it can be rewired by our thoughts, and it affects our thoughts, affects our physiology, and our physiology affects our thoughts. So everything in our body is interlinked. So certainly the way that we think about things, the way that we see the world, certainly impacts our ability to be successful, and certainly enhances or detracts from our ability to be successful. So as part of this series, I want to start delving into a few of the psychological and emotional success factors outside of the pure skills, ability, experiences, tactics of being successful. Delve into more of the strategy of being successful and how that impacts our ability to help other people shape the world around us, and how we're shaped by it as well, how our biases and how our filters of how we see the world affects our performance, both as a human being, as an individual, as a citizen of the world, but also in our daily jobs, our daily lives, and in the roles that we're trying to do, and how we're trying to change the world, hopefully for the better. And one of the success factors that I'd like to talk about today is to how to see the world through the eyes of a comedian, or to think like a comedian. And if you think of most of the very, very successful comedians in the world, from George Carlin to Joe Rogan to Bill Hicks to all of the people that we would consider to be the smart comedians, any of the really well-known smart comedians, both dead and alive, that have really made a change in the world and have really impacted the way that people see the world. If we combine all of those things together, if we look at the Russell Peters of the world, if we look at really any of the really well-known comedians that really have become world famous, and I can list probably another 10 more off the top of my head, and I'm sure you can too, but the one thing that sets them apart, or there's a couple of things that set them apart. One of the things is their worldly experience. And so the ones that have traveled more, the ones that have lived overseas or to their home country, the ones that have really met a lot of people, had a tremendous amount of life experience to draw upon, the better off that they are. And the more interesting they tend to be, because they have a greater pool of life experiences to draw upon and observations to draw upon. So certainly the ones that have lived abroad, traveled abroad, that have done a wide variety of things. I mean, if you look at the likes of Joe Rogan, and he's a really intelligent, super smart, funny comedian. The guy has obviously hosted TV shows. He's announced that MMA fighting. This guy is really, he's quite a well-known hunter as well. Whether you're into that or not is irrelevant. It's the life experiences that he's had. He really goes out of his way to travel around the world. He does a very well-known podcast. He has very interesting guests on, so he's on, automatically being exposed to a lot of different viewpoints on the world, a lot of different lenses on the world, and that helps him to be a more informed human being, a more informed citizen of the world, and it helps to shape some of the comedy that he takes on as well. And if you were to take that one step further and say, okay, well, the great comedians have fantastic life experience, and variety is the spice of life anyway, so we want to try to expose ourselves to as many life experiences as we can that don't kill us, hopefully. All all of the feelings of life, from excitement to joy to pleasure to pain, the broader range of human experience that we can have, the more exciting our life will be, and the better stories we will have to tell. And really, ultimately, at the end of the day, whether we're talking about content creation for marketing, or whether we're talking about content creation for comedy, or whether we're talking about content creation for some form of art, for writing books, etc., really, it has to do with the broad range of experiences that the individual has and their ability to put pen to page or convert their life experiences into storylines that are interesting, engaging, humorous, funny, playful, all those things that we look for in an energetic and magnetic individual, those things that tend to make people come across as very charismatic. The other thing that comedians have in common almost universally, if you take the Billy Connollys of the world and some of the other very, very well-known comedians, one of the other things they have in common is their extreme levels of observation. And it's not just observation of the happenings in the world around them, but also the extreme observation of human psychology. So being very, very observant of everything going on around them at almost an insane micro level, seeing things that the vast majority of us simply do not see because we're not paying as much attention as they are. And because they are effectively pundits or commentary, a lot of their shows and their skits and their comedy is based on life commentary. It's based on pop culture commentary in many instances. So in order to be able to do that effectively and connect with an audience, they need to be very observant about what's going on in pop culture around them. They need to be very observant of multiple cultures. They need to be very observant and be able to see those nuances and those differences between cultures, differences in individuals, difference in the sexes, male and female, differences between adult and children, differences in the world, for socioeconomic differences and the like. So those observational skill sets, almost like a detective level or forensic level observational skills, really gives them the ability to both see the contrasts and the similarities between people and call those out in a humorous sort of way. So that certainly informs their comedy. And they have the ability to take what is an otherwise mundane happening in life, put it through the lens of comedy, endow it with some sort of meaning and some sort of story crafted around that experience that helps it connect with other people. And that leads on to the next capability that they have. They have the ability to connect with the audience wherever they are. And so you'll often see them when they're speaking in cities and towns, or they're on tour, etc. They will try to find some connection, some observation in that local town or that local community or that local accent that people speak in, some of those local activities that people are well known for, local attractions that a town or a city is very well known for. They will weave those into their story so that they can immediately form some sort of a bond with the audience. And so they show that they have the ability to connect at a very intimate level with their audience, and that they're on their same level, that they're not above them, they're not below them, they connect with them where they are. And so that becomes really, really important when you're thinking about marketing, when you're thinking about business, when you're thinking about technical automation, integration solutions, when you're thinking about business, when you're thinking about marketing, when you're thinking about storytelling. It has a lot in common with modern comedy. And in fact, many marketers and many public speakers, people that give keynotes, will pay homage to comedians, and they will oftentimes refer back to comedians that they watched as a child or people that they grew up with, and they will weave that stylistic integrity of what they've seen and weave that into their personality, weave that into their charisma, even work its way into the way that they actually speak, the way that they vocalize things, the choice of verbiage that they use, whether they swear, they don't swear, whatever the case may be. I'm a big swearer in everyday life. I tend to swear a lot. It doesn't make me smart. It doesn't make me dumb. It's part of my everyday parlance. Tend not to swear as much on screen, but definitely it's part of my parlance, and it's probably just where I grew up, Southern California. It's swearing is everyday parlance. Everybody does it, so it just becomes part of your culture, part of who you are as a human being. And so these comedians that have this big impact, they tend to be able to weave those subtle nuances of not only their immediate surroundings and the culture that they grew up in, but also what they were exposed to, and weave that into kind of their characteristics and their persona and their personality as they put it out there to the audience. And they can identify with an audience through that, because it helps them to come across as being more human, more authentic, more genuine. And so it's not a shell as such. It's not a facade. It's actually who they are in everyday life. life, and if they have an ability to weave that authentically into how they tell their stories and into how they tell their jokes, then they come across as more authentic and they connect on a deeper level with their audience. And so those are some really, really key skills. One of the final things that comedians have the ability to do, or one of the things that the characteristics that they have, or one of the things we can learn from comedians, is the fact that they have a very, very thick skin, and they tend to be very patient. And obviously, when you are, especially as starting out as a comedian, I can only imagine that you're starting to hit your stride. You're just trying to figure out what your stage persona actually is, how you convey your message in a unique way, in a funny, humorous way, and you're trying to leverage all of your skills and abilities. Maybe it's even your appearance and the way that you look. Maybe you just look funny. And so as they're starting out, obviously they're still refining their craft. They're still honing what they do, like we all have to hone our craft. And so they're going to get heckled. It's just the nature of the beast. And so they have to have a very thick skin, and they have to be able to give as good as they get. And so that thick skin nature, and I don't mean being hard or being calloused to other people in your life, but certainly being able to brush off, the whole sticks and stones mentality. It's really important that you have that, especially if you're going to aim for the stars, if you're going to shoot for the stars, and you're going to try to be out there, you're going to be trying to change the world for the better. You're going to try to impact lives on a global scale. You're going to get some arrows in your back along the way, just because, whether it be jealousy from other people that are trying to tear you down, or people that don't know how to make it on their own, and so therefore they believe in order to succeed they have to tear other people down, as opposed to just simply building the biggest building in town. They tear the other buildings down so that they seem like the biggest. That whole tall poppy syndrome mentality. You're going to run into that in your everyday life. You're going to run into it in business. You're going to run into it in your personal life. You're going to run into it in every aspect of your life. And so you need to be able to have that thick skin, the thick skin of a comedian, to be able to shrug that off, know what you're about, know what your goals are, know how you're going to get there, have that plan in place, and not let anybody or anything, any situation, deviate you from that plan, from that path. And so just shrug it off and move on. And that can become the fuel for your fire as well. So, a lot of comedians, the more they get put down, obviously it's natural material, it's natural building blocks. The best comedians can turn around a heckle, and they can turn it into material instantly on the spot, on the stage, and kind of not only put that person in their place, but also make it humorous for the rest of the audience, that whole process, as opposed to being sheepish. They attack it head on. And that's certainly a skill. So to take those arrows that would normally hit you in the back and be able to turn those around and use them as fuel for your fire. So it keeps you focused. It gives you something to prove sometimes, and some people need that level of motivation. They've got something to prove. They got something to prove to their parents. They got something to prove to competitors. They've got something to prove to a boss or employees or whatever the case may be. Sometimes having something to prove is that little extra push that you need to continue and push through all of the adversity, so that you see a goal through to the end. So turning that fuel into fire for yourself, as those barbs come at you, as competition comes at you, as people that would seek to tear you down come at you, being able to turn that around and use that to push you to ever higher levels, and be able to take that sort of punch in the mouth, spit out the blood, and keep moving. That really is the hallmark of a winner. And obviously complainers are losers, so there's no point in complaining about it. Nobody cares, nobody listens, and really we've got to focus on that goal, that long-term goal that is our North Star that we're aiming towards. So hopefully this concept, some of these the psychology of success, or the psychology of a winner. I've tried to expose myself to, obviously I've moved to New Zealand from America, so have had a tremendous amount of life experience through that, had tremendous exposure to many different cultures, have a huge broad range of personal interests and professional interests myself. I think that helps to make me a well-rounded individual, all the way from, in years gone by, flying radio-controlled helicopters, to doing trap shooting, to being into motorcycles, to being into just a huge broad range of interests and activities that I think has helped to shape my view on life. That's what I would encourage you to do. I would encourage you to take on as many opportunities as you can for life experiences, and that's going to make you a really more well-rounded individual. It's going to allow you to see the world through other people's eyes, and it's going to allow you to be able to identify and empathize with those that you have to do business with, that you're pitching to, that you're marketing to, that you're communicating with in the content that you create, etc. It's going to allow you to have a common ground with those people, and it's going to allow you to be able to communicate with them in such a way that it really actually has an impact, which is what I assume everybody that's listening to this actually wants to have in the world. They want to have an impact, and they're wanting to grow their audience so that they can grow the effect that they can have on other people. So that's about all I've got to say for today. I'm starting to see some really good traction on Twitter in terms of engagement and follower numbers, and the same with Instagram. Certainly, Instagram Stories has become a great place for me to do impromptu video, and it's similar to Snapchat, but it's so much easier to grow an audience from nothing on Instagram. That's really been definitely a focus of my energies of late. Obviously YouTube, obviously Facebook, as per normal, the 800-pound gorillas for video content. Definitely, that's still a major focus for me, but certainly from LinkedIn to Instagram and certainly Twitter, both, all three of those really seeing some really good traction there. So if you don't already follow me there, if you already haven't, you're connected with me there, certainly look me up. I'm easy to find, Jason Greenwood, on all three of those platforms. So really very easy to find. So I'd really love to hook up with you if you're on those platforms. Love to see what you're up to, hopefully be able to share. I try to curate and I try to create unique content by platform. About Facebook and YouTube really are the two platforms that I upload these types of videos to. Exactly the same content is uploaded to both places, but I want to start doing a lot more Facebook Live and things like that. But obviously you've got to have an audience to warrant putting out that additional content across that channel. So certainly, if you're not already connected with me there, look forward to connecting with you in all those places, seeing how you do things, and hopefully sharing some unique content with you there as well. So look forward to chatting with you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.